Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strelko, joined by Adam Eaton. Welcome in to Sons of UCF Live. Adam, what are we wearing there? Is that black and gold? Is that our version of gold?
You wouldn't know anything about that, Trey. So don't worry about that. But coming up, we'll talk about the Gators. We'll talk to Coach Lounsbury. We got, 742 mailbag questions to get to. A couple of new things to show you this week. So stick around here for another action-packed episode of the Sons of UCF Live.
Well, we're going to talk about that Colorado debacle in just a few moments. But off the top, wide receiver, now ex-UCF wide receiver, Xavier Townsend, making it official, that which had been peddled where rumors are digested during the week, message boards and the like, that he's going to redshirt, enter the portal. His time as a Knight seemingly over. And, his camp, mom in particular, going on social media, blaming the offense a bit. And I think those of us who've watched Xavier have been looking for him to do more. And so somewhere in between lies the truth. There can be many versions of truth, right? What's the impact more immediately this weekend, not having Xavier?
Honestly, I think it's in the return game, right? He was the main returner for UCF on kicks and punts, right? So I think we've got to get somebody up for that. I mean, we saw Ladarius Tennyson, or as some people call him, Penny Boone, return a lot of kicks this past week against Colorado. So, obviously it's next man up on that material. I think in the receiver core, you have a mix of guys who I think can float in there. Javarius Johnson, Chauncey Magwood, maybe one of the young guys like a Burdell Richardson gets in there. But I think the impact's probably felt more on special teams. I think he felt like he always had a chance to break one. And so now how do you kind of fill that gap, that hole, and get some of those hidden yards on special teams?
Of course, the return of Trent Whittemore, the former Florida Gator, with family ties to both programs, maybe an opportunity for him to break out in the swamp. Of course, the Knights coming off this 48-21 loss to Colorado, been well discussed on our various platform shows throughout the week. I asked on social media, is this the worst loss of the Gus Malzahn era? Now, some recency bias here, I think. Colorado, this is the most competitive poll I think I've ever posted, and a lot of response to it. People asking me if I'd put in all of the above, that would have won with 100%. And some of the write-ins are interesting as well. But some recency bias. But I think with everything that was at stake, it is certainly going to be remembered. That reverse Baylor with the win over TCU. Now you need to kind of reverse this, maybe coming this weekend in the swamp.
Yeah, I'm happy to be guilty of the recency bias. I do think it's this past weekend, right? 4 million eyeballs watching on Fox, another million plus watching Big Noon Kickoff. The celebrity, the fanfare that was there on campus this week. The crowd was loud. The crowd was into it. This was a golden opportunity for UCF with a ton of people watching to take that next step and to further cement themselves into that future of college football conversation. So I think when you add in all of those elements, the worst home defeat since that 2015 season, Trace, I mean, it just looked like from start to finish. I said on the podcast this week, UCF had won the day up until about 4:45. Right about then, I think that's when things really started to go downhill. Up until then, the UCF had a good win throughout the entirety of the day. So I think when you factor in everything that came with that, I think that for me is the worst loss of the Gus Malzahn era. Now, if we talk about on field, you can debate the Baylor meltdown, whatnot. But I think when you add in all the other ancillary items, I think it's this Colorado showing hands down for me.
Some people, I don't know, me, ran his mouth a little bit much about beating Colorado. I certainly wouldn't have wagered what I did with my nephew, who was featured on the show a week ago, if I thought that the margin would be 27 points. Kyle has had some fun with me over the last week, in particular during the game. I'm working up in the press box. He's blown up my phone with texts, and a lot of it was unkind. And I asked Kyle if you cut a little video, maybe being conciliatory, maybe letting his good uncle off the hook a little. Sure, I don't think he cooperated.
Yeah, you haven't seen this video?
I've seen it.
Well, you're in
and now you can.
What happened? How could you lose to CU Boulder by 27 points? My game prediction was 31-28, and boy was I wrong, because we came out swinging, we came out fighting. You know how we're looking, ready to go. The Shadur Sanders jersey. He came out to play, baby. So did Travis Hunter. Exactly what I said was going to happen on the podcast. And oh boy, are we excited with some punishments. We got 27 pancakes, 270 push-ups, and best one yet, Trace Trelko has to wear a beautiful CU Boulder piece of gear on a podcast episode. We love the win here in Boulder. We're excited. We're coming out swinging again this upcoming week after the bye. And let me tell you, we're making a bowl. All right? It is time, and this win is feeling pretty good. You know, at the end of the day, like my uncle said at the end of the podcast, I'm a businessman, and that's what we're here for. It's all in good fun, though. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I appreciate everything.
I see he inherited your UCF technology. Did he shoot that on an 8mm? Or what happened there?
I don't know. 27 pancakes. All right. So there, you can go back and look. We didn't say full-size pancakes. They could be silver dollar pancakes. We didn't say the time frame with which the 270 push-ups. UCF Mike asking, will there be a live stream of eating the pancakes and doing the push-ups? I'm not sure about that. I intend to pay off this wager when I see him and family again, perhaps at the holidays. I'm not buying a Colorado shirt, so I'm going to have to borrow something to do a show, which I will do. So congratulations to Colorado. They certainly got the best of the Knights.
I was going to say, you can probably borrow one from one of the fans that was there that will jump off the bandwagon as soon as Dion leaves. But I don't want to do that because they whooped our ass pretty good, so I don't want to have sour grapes, but you probably could do that. But good luck to you, my friend. That's a ton of pancakes. The push-ups, I mean, are you doing that at the same time? Are you like 9 pancakes, 9 what are you?
This will not be done at the same time.
Oh, well, I mean, just an idea.
I think they're going to be silver dollar pancakes. I'm all right on the push-ups. That won't be consecutive. I'm not doing 270 consecutive push-ups, but I will honor the wager. I certainly would not have agreed to all that if I thought that was going to be. Who does that? Right? I mean,
I think you at your next press conference, I think you need to tell Gus that, hey, listen, CF will split them with you. You say, hey, coach, you're accountable, right? You want to split these with me. You know, I know he likes the Waffle House, but maybe you can get him to help you out there. You can split some of these.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll go over real well with Coach, who we heard from on Monday. Not a lot of energy in the room. I think you could pick up on that as you watch the video. I think everybody recognizes the opportunity that was missed and lost with the big stage set, the game that drew more than 4 million people watching at home, no doubt to see Dion, but you take advantage of that audience and you make a showing, and they certainly did. We heard from Coach Malzahn saying there is an opportunity now this weekend in the Swamp to rebound from this past weekend's loss.
Yeah, it's important because it's the next one. I mean, the way we played, we need to redeem ourselves. And so it's another opportunity. Just happens to be they're the next ones on the schedule. So, we need to play good football.
Understatement, right? But what kind of football will we see? It's funny, this game of college football and our fandom, they had to rally to beat TCU, but that was still a 3-0 team. And, you could go in and beat the Gators. The Knights, Vegas having fun with it, right? Establishing UCF as a favorite on the road. And then you come home, you face Cincinnati. We could be talking about a 5-1 team in 2 weeks, or the things could get a little wobbly.
Any given Saturday, Trace. I think that's the challenge. I think as a UCF fan right now, that's the roller coaster that we're riding. Is you could see a really good team, i.e., a second half TCU team that played really well and stopped the run and stopped the pass and made big plays, or you could see a team that came out in Colorado. I think right now it's probably the frustration with the fan base is it's kind of a coin flip. So, buckle in for Saturday night. I hope they play well. I think he hopes they play well, but I think it's week to week with this team at this point in time. So it's on to the next one, but I certainly understand maybe somebody with a little bit of skepticism.
A little bit of skepticism from our friend Dolly Drama, out with a column now at sonsofUCF.com. Just a little disgusted with the Gus bus is the headline. I pulled out a sentence. I think you included it in the quote tweet. Fight, compete, stop with the lip service. And Dolly references when Gus got here and, the announcement of that Gator game. We'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime in the parking lot. And, after what happened last weekend, the pressure amps up. This is a game that means an awful lot to a lot of UCF fans, this game in Gainesville.
Who's off the hook is Darren Stoltzfus for that pressure cooker question he asked at Gus's opening pressure, because that's certainly what it's felt like here the last couple of days. And you're right. Like, listen, here's the reality. Some of this can be eradicated if UCF goes into Florida and wins, right? Some of this bad feeling, some of this ill will can easily be eradicated. Now, I don't think it's one of those things where it's going to be completely forgotten, but you have a golden opportunity right in front of us here. And so, I think we're all in the same boat. We're not hearing much from UCF this week, so curious to see what the vibe and the mood has been like in practice. And luckily, our next guest can probably give us some really good insight on that.
Perfect segue. He's been at practice this week. He is Coach Paul Lounsbury. Joins us again this week on Sons of UCF Live. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, Trace. I'm good, Adam. Good to see you guys.
All right, let's begin with what was a little bit of news off the top. Xavier Townsend. This is the age of where we are, right? He even releases a statement with the graphics like he'd made a commitment announcement, but it's the reverse. He's out of here. What's the impact, do you think?
Well, I don't. What the impact is like it would have been if he'd have been injured, and the next guy has to step up and play. The problem is that Xavier may think it's greener on the other side of the fence, and it may not be. So that's the problem in this day and age with the portal and the NIL stuff. Everything looks better somewhere else sometimes if it doesn't go exactly the way you want it. And I struggle with that a little bit because one of the things that I feel like football teaches those who play are life lessons. And one of the life lessons is when things aren't going your way, you suck it up and you find a way to make it better and you get better. And this is kind of a way of not doing that. And that bothers me a little bit, but you just have to treat it as if he was injured and the next guy is up, and I think we'll have some guys respond.
For all the talk in UCF land of a Dylan Gabriel, a Thomas Castellanos going on and doing good things and good for them, we forget about the names that transferred other programs that you don't hear much of anymore. And there's certainly, when you see the portal announcements, how many guys don't connect with any team.
Yeah.
You mentioned grass greener. All right. We talked over the weekend. Can you imagine coaching in this age of constant scrutiny on social media and message boards? The fan base was feeling pretty good at 3-0, and now the sky is falling at 3-1.
Yeah, it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. That's the old saying, and I think that is even more true with social media. But I will tell you this: I know how frustrated the fans are. I'm the same way. You had a great opportunity to score a lot of points with eyeballs this weekend and get them thinking that UCF was at the top end of things, and we didn't get it done. But there's nobody more frustrated or disappointed than Coach Malzahn and the coaches and the players on the team. They know they had an opportunity that was missed, and they're not happy about it, and they want to redeem themselves. And that's the attitude I saw at practice this week, and I think it's a healthy attitude, and I think our boys are going to play well at Florida. Florida is a much better team than people give them credit to be. They're huge on defense. They've got two really good quarterbacks and some really good skill guys, especially running backs. So it's going to be a tough test for us, but every week is going to be like that. Every week that we play after we got done with our first two games was going to be could go either way. And I really believe that's how it's going to be with Florida and the rest of the season as well.
Coach, I have a simple question that may have a complex answer. What happened? I mean, I think this was a team that I think a lot of fans felt good about. And to me, and you've forgotten more football than I'll ever know, it seemed like Colorado was more physical at the point of attack the entire game. UCF didn't really have any answers. What did you see? What happened in this game that led to the 48-21 result?
Well, we weren't able to run the ball the way we would like to have. We weren't able to stop the run the way we wanted to. But the biggest problem was the 4 turnovers. The first turnover was just a terrible pass, underthrown and interception in the end zone. I mean, we started the game great, got a turnover, took it down there. And if we'd have punched that in for a touchdown, I think momentum would have been great. And it was really deflating when we threw that interception. The other 3 turnovers created problems for us too, but I wasn't so disappointed in those because the interception by Travis Hunter was a great play by Travis Hunter. And the 2 fumbles, one by RJ and one by KJ, those guys were both just trying to win and do extra things to make us try to get back in the game. And that'll happen sometimes. They were trying to do probably more than they should have been trying to do in trying to win the game. So, there's no real good answer as to what happened. They beat us every way they could beat us, but I'm not sure that sometimes it's just a matter of things didn't match up right. Maybe you have a bad day and they have a good day. Sometimes that happens. And so I don't know any more that I can say than that. It's not an easy thing to figure out. But I do know this, that the coaches and players went back and they looked at that game tape with a fine-tooth comb. They figured out everything they could figure out that they can fix, and they've tried to fix it, and they're going to move on and get ready for the next game because every game is different. So I think they've done all they can to get ready for Florida.
Coach, you mentioned social media this week was a blaze. Our shows, our comments, our Twitter messages were on fire. And one I saw a lot that I'd love to kind of get your perspective on is, and again, I don't know what's true or not, so I'm going to come to you for expertise on this. A lot of fans are saying that UCF and the coaching staff didn't make any adjustments, that there weren't any adjustments. What did you see? Obviously, you know more than we do. What did you see from an adjustment perspective?
There were adjustments made all the time in that game by both teams. And they were making adjustments. Both teams were making adjustments. It just wasn't – we didn't execute as well as we should have executed. People don't understand. There's a lot of things that go into the game besides X's and O's. There's a lot of physical things that sometimes you're successful at and other times you're not. And like we used to say back when I was coaching, those other guys are on scholarship too. There's a reason they're there. And in fact, they got a much higher NIL budget than UCF does. So, they got some players and they showed up and they played. I don't think you're going to see a better quarterback than Shakir Sanders. And I don't think you're ever going to see a better receiver and cornerback than Travis Hunter. And, it happens. We came up against a team that we thought we could beat. We didn't beat them that day. I'd love to play them again later in the season. I'd love to see if that could happen. I think we would have a chip on our shoulder that might put us in a better position. I don't know. But I know the guys played their hearts out. They played hard. There wasn't one iota of give up. And the coaches did the same thing. There were adjustments made all the time. I'm sitting there on the sideline watching the adjustments being made. So for a lot of people – and I have to say this, and you guys can be mad at me if you want to be, but there are a lot of people out there on social media that are bitching and moaning, and a lot of times they do it because they're trying to impress their buddies on how much football they know, or they're trying to impress their girlfriend, or they just don't know that they don't know. So I want to tell them, just be patient. We got a good coaching staff and a good team, and one game does not a season make.
All right, we'll clip that, Adam, and we'll use that in a promo right there. Now, I'm going to be one of those people that tries to impress with this question. When Coach Malzahn made changes to the coaching staff and brought in Ted Roof, we've been told for a while to expect a different style of defense, and I think a lot of Knight fans say they've been sold a bill of goods so far. How would you counter that?
I think they're full of beans because I think we have a better defense. We're more athletic. We're stopping the run better than we did last year. I think those people who say that nothing's changed on that side of the ball, they don't know what they're talking about. We're a lot better football team on defense than we were. Now, we have to play better than what we did against Colorado, but we were playing better prior to that game. So, like I said, it's not all about one game. And people can complain, and they have every right to voice their opinion, and I'll give them that. I'm just not going to listen.
Don't read the comments that Adam's posted at the bottom of the page. All right,
Hey.
Devil in the details. A stat, though, that jumps out after 4 games is UCF's tied for last in all of FBS and sacks. Saw 2 against Colorado, but 3 over 4 games. And we've been talking about needing to get pressure, especially on Sanders, but now UCF faces 2 quarterbacks and 2 different styles of quarterback. It's still the same rules here. You're going to have to get to somebody.
Yeah, and I told you before, it isn't about the number of sacks. It's about the kind of pressure and making the guy uncomfortable in the pocket. And I think we've done that to some degree. Um, would we like to have more sacks? Of course, and our defense would like that too. But a lot of that is guys are getting rid of the ball pretty quick. Both TCU and Colorado, they didn't hold the ball very long, very often. And when we did have Sanders break out of the pocket in the game, if we were able to keep him running, he wasn't as successful as when he had a chance to set his feet and throw. But he makes plays. He's a gifted athlete. And, we missed some tackles in that game too. And part of that is because of those guys we were trying to tackle are pretty good.
Coach, what did you see? You mentioned the running game obviously wasn't clicking for UCF. KJ looked like he had a little bit of pressure throughout the day. The pocket wasn't maybe as clean as it's used to. What did you see from the O-line? It looked like maybe this defense was more challenging than maybe some of the other defenses they've seen this year.
I think what I saw was we didn't run the ball with the effectiveness that we ran it before, and that's the biggest issue. That's why we had a little more pressure than we like in the passing game too. But we have to execute the run game better than what we did against Colorado, and that's what we've been focused on all week, and I think we'll get that done. But I think the biggest problem was, besides the turnovers, was not being able to run the ball with the authority that we were able to run it in the past, in the first three games.
So how do we fix that against Florida? What things do we need to do differently this Saturday to sort of right that ship, if you will?
Well, I think we just have to execute better, and that means better fundamentals, both at the tight end and offensive line, and even receivers. Better. Some of the running was probably a couple of bad reads on the runs too, so we've got to do better there. But I think it's just execution, and things. Once you get started on something and you do something, it kind of builds on it, and if you don't do it, it can build that way too. So I think it would be nice for us to get off to a quick start in the running game and kind of establish that early. I think that would really help us.
For fans who have not been, who will experience it for the first time, describe the Swamp. Double the size of the bounce house, 90,000 fans. You mentioned it right there. You want to take those fans out of the game early. This is a fan base that's not particularly enamored with head coach Napier right at the moment, and they may boo a little if UCF can jump out early.
Well, yeah, and it is a fan base that's loyal, though. They'll be loud, and it is a really difficult place to play because your 90,000 fans are right on top of you. There's no sideline to speak of behind the bench, so they're right on top of you. It's a tough place to play, but it'll be an interesting environment if we can get on top and do things right. You'll hear them boo their own players too. So it's a great environment, especially if we can quiet them down and run the ball a little bit. It'll be fantastic.
A season ago, KJ Jefferson, then with Arkansas, had success in the Swamp, and I know Knights fans are looking for him to do the same this coming weekend.
Well, I am too. I hope he does. He's a gifted runner, and when he's hot, he can throw it too, and we're going to need him hot.
All right, we got the clip of you and pushing aside all that social media negativity. It's hard to do this, right? You want to talk about success, but there are going to be losses. I can tell you haven't done a show in 2015. We didn't think they were going to lose every game when we came on every week. We thought that there was light around the end of the corner, but it's hard. You got to find a balance here between, try to be optimistic and being down. I mean, they are 3-1. They didn't play well last weekend, but they are capable of winning. My experience, Trace, is that negativity doesn't solve anything. All that does is create more stress. So to me, especially if I had a player that was struggling and I didn't have anybody better to put in his place, then I had to find a way to get him to perform better. And so being positive was the way to do that if I could. So
And you can't be phony with it. You have to be real with it, but you have to look for things to be positive about. And I think our coaches have done that, and they've also, it's natural. Coaches naturally have to correct, so they're naturally negative in that respect, but you have to kind of temper it with positivity as well, I think. And that's what I think our coaches are doing, and our players are responding to that.
We had a fan this week call you out and said, "I don't want any positivity. I want him to be real." All right, so you
Had to be Doug Schoen.
that. You said that. Let us know if Coach was real enough for you.
It had to be Doug Schoen. Doug played for me, and he's always trying to stir the pot. So, Doug, I'll just tell Doug he needs a haircut. That's all I'll say.
Coach Lounsbury, appreciate talking to you. Let's get a W in Gainesville this week.
I appreciate you guys again. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. All right. After we talk to Coach Lounsbury, how you feeling, Adam? What's your optimism level going into the Swamp?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think if we get the team that I think that we can be, certainly there's an opportunity to play a good football game. I think the challenge is you're coming off of seeing 4 quarters of a team that looked like they had no business being in a football field. So it's tough to erase that from your mind and sort of move on to the next. Maybe once that ball gets kicked in the air, I feel differently right now. But, I think, listen, Dolly said it perfectly in his column. We've heard all of these things. We've seen all these things. This is a results-driven business, right? So we'll have to find out what it looks like Saturday at 7:45. Right now, I understand and I share other people's pessimism that this is going to turn out perfectly, but we have an opportunity and stranger things have happened. So, we all signed on to this train for some crazy reason to be UCF fans. So no reason to hop off right now.
Who you picking and pick them in this game?
I don't even know who I picked. I usually pick UCF just because if I don't pick UCF and we lose, then I get called up by everybody. So I just pick UCF.
You just go with it. Did you take them last week, laying 14 or 15?
I did. Yeah, I did. Because if we lose, no one's going to care about what I pick. They're just going to be mad. So I usually just pick UCF anyway, just so I can avoid being yelled at by UCF Mike, who I know you want to talk about his current status in that.
I just want to mention that he fell from 73rd overall in the standings last week to 76th this week.
Okay, and you've done that now. Perfect.
That's all. That's all I wanted to say. His best week, though, is when he did the reverse of all of his original picks. So if he's employed that strategy again. UCF 1-1 in the Big 12 with a loss to Colorado. A lot of teams also have one loss. Let's go to Jeff Allen now for a look around the Big 12.
6 games adorn the schedule this week in the Big 12, and it kicks off Friday night with a Texas Tango as Houston travels to TCU. That will be at 7:30 on ESPN. The Saturday slate looks like this. Oklahoma State hosts West Virginia, 4 o'clock on ESPN2. Number 16, Iowa State welcomes Baylor at 7:30 on Fox. Kansas travels to Arizona State, 8 o'clock on ESPN2. And in Big 12 After Dark, Arizona entertains Texas Tech at 11 on Fox. The bye teams this week are Colorado, number 17 BYU, number 12 Kansas State, Cincinnati, and number 18 Utah. The lone non-conference game brings us the long-awaited Gasparilla Bowl rematch between our Knights and the Florida Gators under the Saturday Night Lights in Gainesville. That one kicks off at 7:45 on the SEC Network. The players of the week for last week in the Big 12 are K-State quarterback Avery Johnson on offense. He had 3 TD passes and 2 rushing scores in their win over Oklahoma State. On defense, Arizona defensive back Takario Davis had 7 tackles and 5 pass breakups in their upset of Utah. And on special teams, J.P. Richardson of TCU had an 89-yard punt return TD in their victory at Kansas. And congratulations to Big 12 Deputy Commissioner Tim Weiser, who will retire at the end of the year after 40 years in college athletics. He has held the Deputy Commissioner post in the conference since 2008. With your Big 12 Minute, I'm Jeff Allen.
Thank you very much, Jeff. One thing that the Gators and Knights have in common are fan bases that are a little disgruntled right now. Let's get to know more about this incarnation of the Florida Gators. Invite in now Dan Thompson, Nick Delatorre. They're part of the Stadium in Gale, Florida's flagship podcast. They are good enough to take out some time in their evening and join us here on Sons of UCF Live. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello, gentlemen.
All right.
Nick's on mute. This is a common occurrence for him.
Sorry, my first podcast.
Welcome in, guys. So we end up doing these shows, and we're in a bit of a bubble in terms of the fan base. We hear a lot of social media and message boards. What is your sense of the fan base at large here? Are they rooting for Billy Napier in this game, or would they just as soon see this be his last?
Go ahead, Dan.
I think a little bit of both. I think Florida certainly has not had their fair share of wins over the last number of years, especially over in-state opponents or rivals for that matter. So I think Florida fans expect them to be a better team, a more talented team, at least on paper. I do think much of the fan base is ready to move on from the Billy Napier experiment, whether it's this game or whether it's the week against Tennessee, next week, Nick, I think that might be the end of the Napier era. But, I think at the end of the day, like no matter how bad Florida's been over the last, 3 or 4 years now, the game is still going to be sold out. There's still going to be a lot of Gator fans cheering. So like, don't let that get misconstrued that there's going to be a lot of fans that want the Gators to win. But I think that there's just as many fans that want Billy Napier gone.
Yeah, it's almost an interesting conundrum because I think a loss to UCF would bookend Billy's career with losses to UCF. He was on the field at the Gasparilla Bowl as the new head coach, watching what team he was inheriting. And I think a loss to UCF. And I'll be at a press conference on Sunday with Scott Strickland announcing his third coach fire in 7 years. But there is a passionate fan base. This is the 9th straight sellout at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, and none of those fans are going there thinking, you know what, I'll trade a loss to UCF if it means Billy's out of there. So at the end of the day, no one is
no one's saying that.
No one's rooting on Nitro on the sideline. But I think they would just take solace in the fact that, hey, this experiment is over if there were to be a loss. Speaking
of experiment, 2 quarterbacks. What do you like, don't like about what you've got now at QB?
Go ahead, Nick.
It's interesting because I went in the year saying, hey, Graham Mertz gives you your best chance to win. And if you want to coach next year, you need to win. But DJ Lagway undoubtedly has a higher ceiling and is your future. You need to win games to be able to make him your present if you're going to be the head coach next year. But I also thought if DJ Lagway is who we think he is going to be, he's not a 4-year player in college. And if he isn't, there's hundreds of quarterbacks that go in the transfer portal every year. UCF has a really good one in KJ Jefferson, who has a win in the swamp last year as well. So in my mind, it made no sense to redshirt DJ. And I thought you needed to get DJ spots. He needed to play meaningful minutes against Texas A&M, against Tennessee, Kentucky, and those teams. But Florida will continue going with this mix. We'll see what cocktail they mix up this Saturday. Against A&M, I think it was every other drive. 2 weeks ago at Mississippi State, it was Graham got 2 drives to every one of DJ's, so it was 2-part mixer, 1-part shot. So we're just waiting to see what kind of drink Billy Napier makes with the quarterbacks this week.
Yeah, no, I would like to see the Gators have a little bit more momentum with who is going to be a quarterback. Like Nick said, it kind of got broadcast on the TV too that Billy Napier had told the ESPN crew that DJ Lagway was going to play the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th drives if they got that far. I'd like to see them have some momentum with a quarterback and have an idea of, hey, maybe it's every second drive, every third drive. But if a quarterback is doing really well, let's see how they do with some consistency in there. And that goes on both sides, right? I think that Graham Mertz is a talented quarterback. I think he's going to probably play in the NFL. I don't think he'll be an NFL starter, but I think that he's got a potential spot in the NFL, maybe waiting for, maybe on a practice squad. And certainly DJ Lagway, you have maybe the only thing that might be the savior this year if you're able to rattle off a few victories with any sort of hope going into next year too. So I want to see a little bit of that, but we've not been able to see great coaching in 2.5 years. So we're hoping that during this bye week that they learned a thing or two.
Dan, I'll start this with you. What's gone wrong this season for the Gators? How did things end up here where they are right now?
I think it's a culmination of 2.5 years. They gave Billy Napier more than they've given any other coach in terms of they have a football-only facility. They have an indoor practice facility. They gave them the largest staff that they've had by far. We were talking about the podcast. It's probably at least double, if not maybe even triple the size of Dan Mullen's staff in terms of on-field staffers and coaches and everything else. They've struggled with recruiting and development in certain areas, especially on the offense and defensive line. They've struggled with losing some key players that are now key contributors in the SEC and in other conferences along the defensive line of scrimmage. And they just haven't really developed the players that they've recruited. And I think that that's where a lot of the optimism was going into the season. It's like, okay, now you've got Billy's guys. And the recruiting rankings were pretty good. These were guys that everybody wanted in the recruiting when they were being recruited. And a lot of them just haven't really panned out, or they haven't panned out the way that I think Gator fans have wanted them to pan out or expected them to pan out. So I think feel for the game is something that's been missing for the last 2.5 years. I think there's a lot of ego involved from the head coach. And I don't necessarily think that ego is bad, but also the inability to notice when things are going wrong to make a seismic change. And that's what you needed to do on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. And then, defensively, the Gators have just struggled for all 3 years under Billy Napier. They've run the same system, right? They got Ron Roberts' protege for the first year. He left. They got a Ron Roberts protege for the second year. And then they got Ron Roberts for the third year. And now he's like the DC. So you have co-OCs, co-DCs, 2 offensive line coaches. It's like you have all of these people, and those are like your worst performing units on the team. So that's maybe a start. We could go on for another hour if you want.
I was going to say, I can go get dinner if you guys want. I'm sure you have dessert before Dan's done. Part of it too is I think Billy Napier had a playbook. He was given the first opportunity to be a head coach at Louisiana. And he was very successful. Won a bunch of games, won their first outright conference championship. And then when he got hired at Florida, all of a sudden NIL is a thing. And now the transfer portal is a thing. And I agree with him that, I think you're supposed to develop or recruit high school athletes to build your roster out and supplement through the transfer portal. The problem is Florida's rivals went and just started cherry picking guys in the transfer portal. And all of a sudden they got old. And they had veterans, and they stayed old, while Florida is now a young team last year. And they frankly have missed on some guys in the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. I think last year's transfer portal class was almost an immaculate inning of strikeouts. So it's just been a slowness, or I don't want to say that they haven't tried or haven't wanted to, but just slow to adapt to a game and a culture of college football that changes every 6 months, depending on how much guys are making in the NIL. And I know you guys had somebody decide to I've played my 4 games. I'm out of here. That's a whole new thing we're going to be dealing with. I did a redshirt report for Florida looking at, hey, here are guys that if they play against UCF, they've burned their redshirt. And here's a list of 25 guys who can still play against UCF and peace out and not play the rest of the year. That's a whole new thing we're dealing with. So I think it was just a stubbornness, hey, this plan, this system worked already. It's going to work again, but everything around that system has changed.
Mm-hmm. Nick, what's the perception of UCF in this matchup? I know UCF obviously coming off a really bad loss to Colorado. Obviously, you mentioned some of the struggles Florida has. What's the perception of this matchup in this game for Gator fans?
Well, I went to UCF, so I've been called a homer all week. It's interesting. I remember on our podcast on Stadium and Gale back in June, I said, listen, no one's talking about this UCF game, but I think UCF can beat Florida. And I was shouted at because the perception is that UCF is a little brother, and you can't lose to UCF. I think this will be 25 years since the first matchup in 1999. This is a totally different ball game. You have a coach, a recognized coach in Gus Malzahn, an established coach in a long line of established coaches with Scott Frost and Josh Heupel and now Gus Malzahn. You have the transfer portal, you have NIL. These aren't the kids who didn't get scholarships to Miami and to Florida and to FSU anymore. These are really, really good prospects. They're getting guys who normally would have gone to go play in Georgia Tech or go play at Clemson. You're like, hey, just stay home. Mom can come and drive up and see you. So it's in my mind, a totally different roster. And then I looked at Florida not being able to stop the run or get off the field on third down for each of the last 2 years. And I looked at UCF having 2,000+ yard running backs and a quarterback who is the exact quarterback Gus Malzahn would make in NCAA football, college football, the video game. And I thought, this is a recipe for disaster. But Florida fans, I don't think can even conceive a loss to UCF. As much as I've been since the summer saying like, hey, this is a game you should be paying attention to because it's a bad matchup, stylistic wise. They say in fights, styles make fights. This is a bad style matchup for Florida's defense based on what UCF wants to do. But I can tell you right now, Florida fans, it's an arrogance. They don't think about UCF unless they're playing that week, and they can't fathom a loss to UCF, which I think is why I was shouted at 5 months ago. And I said, hey, this is a game you need to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Nick said. I think that Gator fans still look at UCF like the team from the 90s or early 2000s or when you guys went defeated, right? And I don't know what's going to change that. And I know that, UCF going undefeated, it's easy to make fun of the national championships and everything else. But, the players you have are at the helm is a quarterback that beat Florida last year. You have multiple players on your defense and on your offense that have been recruited by Florida or played at Florida. So it's definitely a different team, but I do think, like what Nick said, it's an arrogance, it's a cockiness thing. And I think there's no world where a typical Gator fan thinks that they should lose to UCF. And we talked about it on the show this week. I mean, there's a very good likelihood that does happen. But I think that the silver lining for the Gator fans at that point is if it does happen, then there's that Sunday morning press conference that Nick will be called to over at the Hefner Center.
Third time in 7 years. So it's,
yeah,
I'm getting used to it at this point.
Knights fans heard an awful lot with the arrival of KJ Jefferson that with Arkansas, he went in and he beat the Gators. Dan, what did he do well in that game?
Yeah, I mean, he ran the ball well. Florida got beat a little bit by themselves in that game too early. Touchdowns that they gave up that put them down. They charged back towards the end, but they let KJ light them up both in the air and on the ground. They had a ton of missed tackles in that game. Just looking back, there's 15 missed tackles. Just not a good game. And
I don't know if that's a ton. That's kind of like the median.
Well, that's the median now. But
yeah.
I think it's an arrogance thing too, right? Because if you would have looked at the time, Sam Pittman was the most likely coach in college football to get fired. They had only had maybe 1 or 2 wins at that point in the year. So I think Florida fans were expecting another blowout. And then they had a
black jerseys.
Yeah, the black jerseys, right? They had a weird fumble that happened when I think it was Ricky Pearsall had the ball right near the sideline and the ball got poked out. They went out and scored a quick touchdown. I think they punt the ball again. KJ Jefferson goes down the field. He just controlled the game well, especially in the first half. And then Florida's playing from at least 14 points down for most of that game. They ended up charging back and ended up missing a field goal at the end to tie the game. But KJ, passed the ball well. He was tough to get down both in the pocket and when he went and ran. Nick will tell you he probably got more stats than I do. Florida is just terrible against dual threat quarterbacks and being able to contain a dual threat quarterback. So, we'll see. I think the offensive line of Arkansas last year is probably a bit better than UCF's offensive line this year. But overall, he's still a playmaker, even if he's not, going to beat you and win the Heisman Trophy type quarterback.
Well, I can see blank stares from your face as you compliment KJ Jefferson's passing. They're like, what? Okay, he clearly doesn't know what quarterback we're asking him about. But I made a joke. I'm like, the only person that could stop KJ Jefferson was Dan Enos, who was his offensive coordinator. Dan was fired. They put in I think the wide receivers coach became the OC, had never called plays before. And I remember telling fans, I'm like, hey, how are you game planning for this? You have no tape of this guy and how he's going to call plays. And Dan literally tried to make KJ Jefferson a pocket passer. Unlucky for UCF. The only person that could stop KJ Jefferson last year is an analyst for Florida. He'll be up in the box and he can just tell him, like, listen, just keep this guy in the box. He can't throw. But yeah, it's going to be, I think maybe UCF gives you a game plan or a blueprint a little bit, but there's not a Travis Hunter,
right.
Not only on Florida's roster, but on probably anyone's roster. He's an unbelievable athlete to watch, but I think UCF plays one-dimensionally on purpose because they can run the ball so effectively. You need to make them one-dimensional in a different aspect and stop the run. I think that means playing island corners on the outside, a single high safety, and really selling out for the run. The issue then is, well, if KJ breaks contain, your cornerbacks have their backs to him, and then he starts breaking off runs. So every defense you play, there is going to be a counterpunch to that. But I think that's the way Florida will have to try to play to really sell out the run, because even when they have sold out and stacked the box, they I think have it pulled up. They have the SEC's second worst rushing defense, only better than Mississippi State. They're allowing 188 on the ground. If you take out the Samford game, because Samford didn't care about passing the ball or didn't care about running the ball at all, then Florida's giving up 231 on the ground against their Power 4 opponents this year.
Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter aside, and that's a big aside, is there something you saw in Colorado that you think Florida looks at and says, well, we could do that same thing against UCF, especially in the way Colorado contained the running game for UCF a bit?
I was surprised that UCF didn't have more success in the trenches, because I've even said this week that I think UCF might have an advantage offensive and defensive line based on what we've seen from Florida this year. And listen, Shador is certainly mobile, and there were times where he was getting the pass off at the last second, times where he's scrambling and creating. But defensively, I didn't see UCF getting that kind of push. And I know there's a lot of zone blocking schemes, things like that, but I just didn't see UCF dominate, because even against TCU, and you can say whatever you want to say about the first two opponents, but TCU is a good team, I think. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong. And that was an unbelievable comeback. They have some bigger guys. It's not New Hampshire or whoever the first game was, but
Sam Houston.
Yeah. So I think that was one thing. And to me, the game has to be for Florida to win is to stop the run. They're also banged up on the interior. They're going to be missing probably two guys. Joey Slack, I'm not sure if he'll play. Micah Burrow, he missed the last game. And Jamari Lyons, who's going to be not a starter, but a guy who played starter reps at nose tackle. Those three guys, at least one of them, probably all three of them, won't play. So Florida's banged up inside, and the pace at which UCF runs. I think if you get Desmond Watson on the field and Gus sees number 21 at 450 pounds and just says, suck it up, guys, we are not subbing, we're going. Like he's gonna have to stay on the field, and how long can he go? So I think the pace that UCF can run with, and then the defensive line for Florida being able to match up against UCF are huge keys for this game.
Yeah, I do think that there's some vulnerabilities at the defensive back and linebacker position for UCF that I think that Florida has some talent. It's still, we don't know if Eugene Wilson's going to play in this game, but, Elijah Badger, Shim DK, Aiden Mizell, Gators have some speedy playmakers. None of them obviously are Travis Hunter, but if Florida can, protect the quarterback and be able to make some throws, I think that Florida can move the ball through the air. Their offense hasn't been bad. It obviously didn't look good against Miami, but their offense hasn't been bad this season. It's just a matter of, can they keep the momentum and can they keep scoring and not shoot themselves in the foot? And it's so often we've seen this team shoot themselves in the foot with bad penalties, with procedural errors, with coaching miscues. So if they can limit those things, then I think that Florida does match up with some of the deficiencies that UCF does have. Now, Florida's offensive line has been mediocre at best at times and atrocious at worst for much of the season, right? So now they have their solidified 5 starters. How does that look against UCF, who wants to rattle Graham Mertz? You're definitely going to want to rattle, DJ Lagway. So I think it's a pretty fair matchup, and we'll see what team shows up on Saturday.
Well, let's wrap up with this. Describe game day in the Swamp for fans who have not been UCF fans who've not seen a game there. What should they expect?
I'll go first. I'm media. Dan can give you a tailgating and drinking experience. Mine's more buttoned up, but the Swamp is really, really special. When it's going and it's going well, now it's almost the fans have kind of been like biting their tongues trying to get into games, and Florida's like, no, please sit down. This is actual church. Voices to a minimum, not letting them cheer about anything. But if Florida's going good, it's a really, really special place. And I've been to almost all the SEC stadiums. I would put it right up there with Tiger Stadium as the best. I think it gets louder than Neyland. It gets louder than Bryant-Denny. And then because it's a night game, if you're a UCF fan and you're there, between the third and the fourth quarter, the new tradition they started doing after Tom Petty passed away, where they play Won't Back Down. When it's nighttime, everyone puts their flashlights up.
Yeah.
That's a really, really unique, one-of-a-kind experience. So I think if you are nice, if you put out kindness, you will receive kindness back.
Yeah.
If you're wearing black and gold in Gainesville, but it's a really, really cool game experience, and it should be a great environment sold out.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with what Nick said. You know, the tailgating is going to be great for those of you that want to tailgate. Gator fans, from everything that I've seen, and, you know, I went to college there, I've been going to games for, 20 plus years now. Gator fans are really nice, and they'll be welcoming. They might, boo and jeer you on, but at the end of the day, they're the nicest people that I've, seen. They're very welcoming. A lot of old money that comes in, a lot of people that are looking to give away food and drinks and everything else. What's really nice about where Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is on campus, and if you're coming, you've never been to UF's campus, it's really cool insofar as they have the track, basketball arena, and football facility all right next to each other. The brand new football facility just opened up, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. So that's a cool sight to see. But if you go right across the street, there's Midtown, which has probably got, 7, 8 bars right now that are open. Really cool place to go, really affordable drinks, especially for those that might live in downtown Orlando. And downtown Gainesville has certainly gone through a really cool emergence as well. There's a lot of new bars, restaurants, a very super walkable area, and that's only 15 blocks from the stadium. So Gainesville's a lot of fun. The weather should hopefully be okay. With it being a night game, though, the way the stadium is built up instead of out, it really does trap in that noise. And if the Gators are humming along, then it should be loud. It should be an enjoyable experience for everybody. And long live the Grog House. Yeah.
Dolly knows. Dolly knows.
I'm a big fan of Balls, the bar.
Got
to make sure.
Thank you for
clarify that. There's a bar called Balls, which is really cool. And there's another place called Salty. Call it Salty. That's what it's called. They call it the Dog now, but it's called Salty Dog. But great place to go. And then they just opened up a brand new bar. But it wouldn't be right if Nick and I didn't give a shout out to our friend Zika, who owns a place called Cantina in Neho, right next to the stadium as well, to go check that out.
When you have a UCF Mike back on your show.
Well, yeah. I asked UC. It was fun. It kind of got like our co-host competitive juice flowing because Mike came in chest out 17-0. I think he added a game. I don't even know if there would be 17. I tried to give Mike some advice. I retweeted Mike. He was asking where to park. He said he's bringing his family up. And I had to DM Mike, hey, these people are lying to you. You cannot park your car anywhere. It will get towed. He's like, really? I'm like, none of these people are your friends. They are absolutely lying to you. Gainesville is waiting to tow your car.
Yeah, I will say, there's a lot of towing companies that are out there that are waiting. But most of campus you can park at for free. Just be cognizant of the signs. If you need a pass, obviously you can't park there. I always encourage people that are coming to campus, and especially if you're going to be there, 5-6 hours before the game, the frat row and law school areas and in the grassy areas that are around that are great places to park, and they're free and you can get in and out. If not, I'd encourage you to park maybe 3 or 4 blocks from the stadium. People, will sell parking at their house to be able to meet or beat some of the traffic getting out of the stadium. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope everybody has a good time.
Nick, when'd you graduate?
13. And it's journalism. They say it's like engineering. It's a 6-year degree for sure. But I did. I started up in North Carolina playing baseball, and then to community college, and followed a girlfriend who was not my wife to UCF after community college. So it's been a while. I certainly don't recognize campus. I haven't been back in like 4 years. I went back to cover a Florida UCF baseball game. And the little strip where bars that we used to go to was like dorms. And I was like, what is this?
But Nick, that did allow us to meet each other. I had moved to Orlando for work in 2012, the end of 2012, and Nick was writing for Bleacher Report, and I had done some writing, and we followed each other on Twitter. And one day we just met up for lunch, and then I asked him, because I didn't know Nick was a student at UCF when him and I met, right? So we actually grew up not that far away from each other. And I said, hey, are you going to the Gator Club meeting tonight, the Alumni Gator Club? He's like, no. He's like, I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, oh, why don't you come with me? And then, I think later that day or the next day, I was writing for Gator Country, and Andrew Spivey said, hey, do you know any writers? I'm like, I happen to know a guy. And so now Nick has become one of my lifelong best friends. Hard to believe it's been 11 years now. But if it wasn't for that chance meeting, Nick, who knows where you'd be right now?
Yeah. My gray beard says 11 years. That's for sure.
So does mine.
Bragging rights are on the line. These teams won't play one another until the 2030s if those games, ever happen. Dan, Nick, we appreciate you spending time with us tonight on Sons of UCF Live.
Thank you guys. Every night.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Adam, what do you think? Going to be an atmosphere, right? And as I mentioned, they're not games scheduled to, 2031, 2033, and UCF has a chance to tie the all-time series at 2 apiece.
Yeah, look, our comment section is filled with nothing but negativity. Let's look at the positive. This is going to be a fun opportunity, right?
Wait, is that Jan? I see Jan here. Should we wear jorts? Jan, Miss Positivity, who calls me this afternoon and says we got to be positive about the transfer portal and recruits. Is she throwing out a jorts line?
I'm not sure that's a recruit thing. Yeah, she's asking about jorts. Look, I got a little optimism there. I mean, those two gents did not sound super
lulling us into a false sense.
Yeah, they didn't sound super excited about this matchup. So, but also last week I thought we'd be Colorado. So what the hell do I know?
What do you know? What do you know? But you know what? UCF's going to look good, right? On loan from the Pegasus podcast, Christian Simmons takes a look at what UCF will be wearing this week.
Well, it finally happened. For the first time this season, UCF is wearing a uniform that actually has some gold in it, which I'm sure a lot of the fan base is very excited about, and what has been a great week for UCF Twitter. So many good things happening. I'm glad that they can stop worrying about how much gold will be in the uniforms. UCF's going with the black helmets with the chrome gold stack decal, white jerseys, and black pants. You have seen this before. This is the combo that UCF wore when they played Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl in 2021. This was a layup choice. This always had to be the combo. I mean, come on. You have that awesome win against Florida from 2021. You have to try to bring that magic back with this look. This was always the look. I know some fans who were in a bad mood were hoping for gold helmets, but I don't know how you could have done something other than this. This is the perfect combo for the game, and one of two things is going to happen. It is going to become even more legendary than it already was, because it will now be the combo that UCF has beaten Florida twice while wearing, or it will be ruined when UCF loses in the swamp. So one of those two things will happen this weekend, but excited to see which one. This is a very good look. Very excited to see it on the field again.
A loss, and it'll need to be burned.
We're running out of jersey. I mean, at some point, we're going to bring back Pewter. I mean, what are we going to do?
Let's take a look at some news and notes.
Mac McWilliams, number 20. Let's go around the kingdom.
I just want to see Mac one more time, because he'll never see a microphone again. I just want to bring Mac back. Yes.
He may not be at the podium again after
I just needed that one more time. Yeah,
conversation on adjustments and effort and all of that going into the Colorado game. Big 12 preseason poll out for women's basketball this Thursday. UCF projected, 14 out of 16, not last. Caitlin Peterson, all Big 12 preseason team. She is a standout on this team. Volleyball, they get a win, a sweep at home over West Virginia. Now hit the road to Cincinnati Saturday at 1:00. Women's soccer, they had a loss at Kansas. They drew Kansas State. They are on the road at West Virginia Friday at 7:00. And men's soccer got their first win in Sun Belt play. And, guess who they're playing? They're playing at, I think, number 6 in the country, West Virginia. West Virginia, of course, a Big 12 school, but Big 12 doesn't offer men's soccer, so they're both in the Sun Belt. That would be huge to get a positive result for men's soccer at West Virginia. We've been talking about this Colorado game all week. It was good to have Eric Lopez back, and we appreciate Christian Simmons from the Pegasus podcast filling in on last week's Around the Kingdom. What did Elo have to say in this week's clip?
You were the guy that told me in August, hey, this game doesn't mean anything. I'll trade this for all the Big 12 wins. You also told me, by the way, that it was good to play Sam Houston in New Hampshire. That it was good to get those Cowboys. What happened to that, Trace? I thought this was all result fixed. We should be played better.
And what I think is the secret sauce for us with the Sons of UCF is this is how we are. And when you have opportunity to meet us in games or out in the wild, this is how we are. This is what Eric Lopez and I do all week. Trace, people like you, he'll bark at me during the week.
Yes. Yeah, no. Again, we have Around the Kingdom overtime that's out now, and that at some point will turn into a full on brawl, which I've seen happen post show before. So I think I have to do more producing and more needling to get these two yelling at each other. But I promise you, it's worth the price of admission.
You can find the Around the Kingdom episode on Sons YouTube channel as well. Hey, breaking news, a new Up All Night with Clay Pasco and Andrew Cherico out on the feed as well. You know, having worked with me for a number of years now, that I am a really anal retentive about the timing of this show. And how do you balance that? I like to get in and out in 1 hour. I remember the gentleman that met us at Fan Fest, and he said, I spend a couple of hours with you guys every week, and 2 of that is the pod right there. So I try and be in 30 minutes on Around the Kingdom, 1 hour on this. But then how do you balance that with so many mailbag questions? And we ask for those, and we get a lot of engagement. And I don't know, Adam, between the Colorado loss, the Florida game, Kissgate in the locker room, the transfer portal, people have a lot of things on their mind. So indulge us. We're going to go a little bit over. Sorry, Clay. It's going to be a little expanded edition of Sons of UCF Live. So it is that time again.
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
I'm too sexy for my shirt.
Literally, I mean, I saw this guy's whole ass.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did this. I zoomed in.
I have honked the horn before.
Yo!
Because I don't really like any of these guys. None of them are my guys.
Maybe a pony.
Giddy up.
Oh, hell yeah. Did we not discuss editing out the horn honking thing coming out of that clip?
Trace, it's been a rough week, man. Like, there's a lot going on. It's on my list. It's on my list. I promise. On my list.
At Cam COX_21. So many questions, but not enough answers. That does seem to sum up the overall segment and the overall week. At Love Not War 311, couldn't find the mailbag post, but I got a question in anyway. I found it, Love Not War. What do we think about having honorary head coaches in the locker room before a game? What do we think about the video that leaked? A lack of institutional control comes to mind. Come on now. Come on. But this is the trade-off, Knights fans. You want the NIL money. And these wealthy guys have big egos. We've renamed a street on the UCF campus for some guy giving us money. It was uncalled for. It was inappropriate. And yet, no statement from UCF. They like the money. They cash the checks.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I don't want to be the morality police here, right? But I don't know that I have the right to comment on that. I was not in the room, so I don't want to speak for the players.
Freeze in on Johnny.
I'll let him speak for himself if he wants to. I will just say there were adults in the room who are trusted to make good decisions on behalf of the people that they have the stewardship of. I don't know if that happened here. And I talked to somebody today who also pointed out the locker room is a sanctuary for players, and letting chaos and letting outside influences, i.e. a Cam Newton camera crew and other individuals in there, breaks some of that sanctity. So I'm not going to get on my horse on this one, but there are adults in the room who have to make adult decisions sometimes, and I don't know that we did the right thing for our guys in that one.
Yeah, we'll save it for Eric Lopez and I on next week's Around the Kingdom, but there is obviously a difference in UCF's approach to the local media that cover the program day in and day out, and the glitterati that is Cam Newton and his camera crew and the access.
It's the hat. I think you need to get a better hat. It's really, I think if you had that hat, I honestly think you may have opportunities.
Or crocheted suits. Perhaps at Rejoice Nights. From kickoff, I sensed the energy in the bounce house for the game was nowhere near the level as game day. Agree or disagree? Well, it was all a lot of touchy-feely beforehand in the locker room, so maybe they didn't come out with their you were in the stands. What was your sense?
Yeah, I think the rain delay was a little bit of a damper, no pun intended, on getting things started. I think the first drive, the interception, that place was loud. It was raucous. You could feel the air go out of the stadium after that first interception in the corner of the end zone. And then Colorado goes right down and scores again. And it felt, you could palpably feel everybody kind of groan and look around at each other like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? So I think, again, we were winning this thing. We were winning the day up until about 4:45 when that interception fell into the hands of the Colorado defensive back. And after that, you could definitely feel a bit of a vibe shift throughout the bounce house.
Well, and Joyce is asking, does this carry over? The Gators are coming out of a bye week. You heard from Coach Lounsbury earlier. They know they were embarrassed. You heard it from Coach Harris on Sunday night. He used the word embarrassed. So we'll see. We'll see. You know, they asked to see what these players how they would respond when they faced adversity. I'd say they got punched in the nose last week, and this is a big game. Everybody knows it. And, you know, for fans, be as loud as you can, but there's 90,000 people there. You may get drowned out a little bit.
Well, we heard all offseason, Trace, all season that this is toughened together. TNT, which is not spelled toughened together, by the way. But we've heard that they're toughened together. I saw a social media post this week from players tweeting out toughened together. We're about to find out if we're going to be toughened together. This is the opportunity where if that slogan means something and if we actually think that's an accurate portrayal, we'll see that on Saturday. So we're about to find out really quickly whether or not this team is toughened together.
At Friedman SR, I know you touched on it in the Tuesday show of Around the Kingdom, but did anyone else find it odd that there seemed to be more Prime fans than Colorado fans? I'll tell you what's interesting. When you check into the press area at the tent, I think gate 16 it is, there were people, you know, you usually want to be neutral. Obviously, the Sons of UCF, that's a little bit different, right? It says UCF in there, but you want to be neutral. There were people checking in at that table that were covering the team that were approved that had full-on Dion jerseys on. So there's a cult of personality that surrounds that guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think obviously there are certainly folks who are following the Dion story and following sort of what his career arc have been. And I don't know their fandom for Colorado, but they are a lot, and they're still in our mentions watching this show right now, you know, 8 days removed for whatever it has been since they whooped our ass. So
clickbait, just put Colorado in the title of every show.
At this point. But I would love a straw poll on the way out to determine who was rooting for who on that one.
It's pseudo refuge. Was TCU or Colorado the fluke? Who are we? I don't know. I don't know who UCF is. I think I saw it flash in the comments. May have been Robert, 2 letters, 2 words, saying, how many good quarters have there been through 4 games, 16 quarters? How many good quarters? You know, I don't know who we are yet.
Yeah, if you do the math, right, 6 of 8 quarters have not been favorable to UCF, right? So if you just do the math on that, maybe we're closer to the bad than the good. But again, all can be forgotten with a nice little win this week.
Hey, Captain Murica, why were we so unprepared schematically with 2 weeks of preparation for Colorado? Well, you know, because Colorado showed us something we'd never seen in the history of football, said Ted Roof.
11 person, a tight end.
No, I never heard of the thing.
A tight end got on the field and they're like, what do we do? What is this person doing? What's a tight end here for? I mean, listen, I don't want to. Sometimes these kids get in front of the podium, Trace. It's the first time in front of the microphone. It's the first time talking to media. Maybe they're nervous. Maybe the things come out differently. You know, you've seen it a ton of times. I remember you telling me the first time you saw Dylan Gabriel in front of a microphone, you thought he was going to throw up all over himself, right?
Definitely.
And now 9 years later, since he's been at college,
he's a little more seasoned.
He's gotten a lot better. Mac McWilliams said something along the lines of maybe the focus and the intention wasn't there. I don't know if that's true or not. I made the accusation this week on the podcast. It felt like we looked at Colorado and said, okay, we can beat this team by doing what we do, and let's just do that. And all of a sudden that didn't work, and that's where things came off the rails. So I don't know if that's true or not. I think perhaps UCF underestimated how tough Colorado would be and thought this could be a game that they could play to their strengths. And when that wasn't there, Gus himself said, we're not a team that can play without the lead. We're not a team that can come from behind and win a game, which is scary, by the way. But
I didn't like that statement, especially 2 weeks removed from coming back on TCU. Why make that statement?
So it appears as though something wasn't maybe planned as well as we thought. And then by the time you try to correct it, maybe it's too late or things start to snowball.
At Dare Zim, is Travis Hunter the most talented athlete to have played in the bounce house? I think so. And the interception, I mean, that guy's going to have one hell of a career, right?
Yeah. Mike did a top 5. I know you and Elo talked about on Run the Kingdom. If we're talking opponents, the only other name comes to mind is Jadeveon Clowney, who had a decent NFL career. But yeah, right now, Travis Hunter, I think, you know, from a visiting player perspective, is certainly the most talented guy we've seen in the bounce house.
At Black Gold _ the future of college football died on September 28, 2024. Tell me why I'm right or wrong. I'll tell you one thing. I'd like to not hear about it anymore. Time to come up with something new.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be the future of college football when you're living in the past. And so I think that's the challenge is we're running an offense that was really, really good in 2013 with a Cam Newton. And there's a question on this later, but, you know, I think Gus and that staff have found, you know, spent all their time trying to find the next Cam Newton instead of figuring out what the next thing maybe is best for this offense. So it's hard to be the college, you know, football of the future if you're always playing to the past and pointing at what you used to do or how much success you did have versus what you've actually accomplished right now.
Well, he wrote the book, you know. Coach Malzahn wrote the book. Maybe he needs to update the book.
You wrote that book in 2003, Trace. 20 years ago, the hurry up, go, whatever you call that thing, offensive book was written.
Nobody was doing it.
And I promise you, if you buy that now, you turn to page 12, you'll probably see a formation we're going to run this Saturday.
Did you record the Big Noon Kickoff and go back and watch it by any chance? Did you
I
see
did not.
it?
No, I did not.
Well, Brock Heward, who we had opportunity to interview leading up to the game, mentioned that when he spoke with Coach Malzahn, he asked him if he'd still running plays from his high school days. You know, if you hadn't heard, Coach Malzahn is an old high school coach. And he said, yes. I thought, well, this is just fodder for J.P. Gilbert. He's running the same plays from his days in Arkansas.
You should have said, are you running any plays you didn't run in high school? Maybe reverse that question. Would have been
at UCF Knights win points out 2023. UCF started 3-0, got punched at home by Baylor. Next week, killed by Kansas on the road. 2024 start 3-0, punched by Colorado at home. Anyone else getting PTSD?
It's there, right? Again, are we toughing together?
Yeah.
Last year we weren't toughing together. Now we're toughing together, though.
Yeah. Riley Carey 16 said, "What are the 100 things that went wrong last game?" I replied that it's an hour show. So what are the 10 things that went wrong? I think we've talked about turnovers, right? I mean, you can't turn the ball over 4 times, and there were the penalties. Missed field goal. I think you talked about it a little bit. The Colton Boomer stats not starting to look all that good over the last season in 4 games. The block's not entirely his fault at TCU, but wobbly in the red zone.
We didn't get a chance to ask Coach about it.
I mean, just
the head scratching decision before halftime to throw the ball 3 times, stop the clock, and give Colorado another chance to net 3 more points. We gifted them 3 points there. Since this is overtime, no one's watching it anyway, Trace. I'll tell you a little story. So after the game, I went back to the hotel, the Celeste. I'm in the lobby, and in walks our friend Brock Heward, who you just mentioned we had on the show. Yeah. And so I'm wearing a Sun shirt at this point. He looks over, and I think he recognizes me, and I recognize him, and of course I recognize him. And so he comes over, we exchange pleasantries, and I won't give you everything he said because I don't think he was known he was being quoted, but I will tell you one thing. He said he was shocked at how quickly Colorado punched UCF in the mouth and how they had no response. And he went on for a few minutes to explain how shocked he was at how much more physical Colorado was in UCF, and everything he saw in film led him to believe that could not or would not happen. And he was flabbergasted that UCF allowed that to take place.
I spoke with him in the press box. I think you touched on it on the podcast. What I appreciated about him is he didn't just prepare for the game in the 2 teams. You had a sense that he knew the 2 teams, in particular UCF. You know, it wasn't just game prep because he was doing the broadcast. He knew UCF. And how many times, by the way, and this dates back beyond Malzahn's era, goes to Heupel, how many times does the other team say, "Oh, I never saw that before"? Oh, they came out with something completely different. How many times are shows across the country after UCF plays and talk about how they got punched in the nose? That physicality, do we hear it?
So you're telling me we should play a tight end? Is that what you're telling me, Trace? Is that the unlock here?
Yeah.
We have a tight end as far as I understand.
He's on pace for 27 catches.
Great.
Maybe he'll get a couple more now without a second wide receiver TBD. It's got 88513. Do you think our defense can improve? I don't know. I mean, we heard Coach Lounsbury say it earlier. I think they are better against the run, but now we thought the defensive line would be a strength. Missing John Walker certainly hurts, but I don't know. I mean, look at some of the statistical categories. They're not on paper better, are they? I mean, just finding different ways to give up plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got maybe our tackling has been better. Give me tackling. Can it be better? It's going to have to be, Scott, because if not, there's going to be full-on meltdown. So it's going to have to be better. But at this point in time, I don't know that you sit there and go, yeah, we'll get this turned around. We've got one of my laments, Trace, has been what I was told all offseason, when you were told this as well, is we brought Ted Roof in because Ted Roof had seen it all and done it all twice. He was a veteran guy. He knew what to do. He wouldn't panic in the moment. He's been a part of these big games. He's going to bring a lot of presence. He's going to bring a lot of experience. I don't know if we've seen that yet. And if that's the case,
because teams are coming out with 11 personnel. I mean, that's
what is this tight end doing here? If he has that, feel free to show that on Saturday.
This is the game to show it, right? And maybe he's got the right ideas, but maybe he doesn't have the players that can perform those ideas. Michael, emptiness 4. Kudos to Michael out there for UCF baseball practice. He's
I
already
love
getting
that.
the lay
By
of the
way.
land.
I love that. There's all like meltdowns on Twitter, and Michael's like, "There's an RBI double." I love the juxtaposition of everyone melting down and Michael telling us about the check swing that caught with third strike there. That was great.
I went out there. I sat for a couple innings with him. Good to see Michael out there. And he's like, "Yeah, there's 2 guys with 17. There's still a guy on the roster with a guy from last year's name, but he did his best. He's shooting some video at Emptiness 4. Give him a follow. One huge thing during the Gus tenure has been that momentum doesn't seem to be a thing. Whether the game it goes good or bad, the team has looked different the next week almost every time. Why? Why is this the case? Michael wants to know. Why does this team seem incapable of building on success? Let me ask you a question, though. Do you believe in momentum as a factor? There are some that don't think it is a real thing.
I do. I don't. I mean, I think momentum is a byproduct of success, right? And I think if you do something that you're successful at and you have the muscle memory, you keep doing that thing. Ergo, you get the momentum, right? So I think it's a byproduct of being successful and having some success. But I don't know that. I don't know. It feels like Gus doesn't have the ability to carry from one week to the next. And I think that's the challenge we're facing is every game is played in a vacuum, in a bubble. And I don't know that we were able to carry that forward at that point.
Did the bye week hurt UCF in that regard? I mean, because KJ got banged up. He got some hits and in that TCU game. What do you think? Do you think the bye week hurt UCF?
I mean, at this point it did, right? Because we didn't do anything with it. Maybe someone got some sun, or maybe people got a couple of rounds of golf in, but it doesn't look like we did a whole bunch of stuff. A whole bunch of stuff to prepare for a football game.
DM from our buddy DFalk_23. Pete Thamel, UCF defensive back Brian Threats has informed UCF coaches he plans to redshirt and transfer. He's told ESPN he have 1 year of eligibility remaining. Spent his first 3 years at Cincinnati, where he played on the 2021 CFP team and started 19 games. So there's that. Didn't have that name on my bingo card yet.
Yeah, I'd also encourage folks, if you want to get frustrated, go read the latest tweet from Mike Rapoli, who responds to some of the criticism about his locker room appearance.
Great. At MJK2288, is KJ overweight and out of shape? Not just a no or there, it's and. He's a big dude.
Listen, I'm in no position to tell anybody they're out of shape, but my thing would be this. I think it appears as though at times KJ isn't playing hard, and maybe that's unfair, and maybe I'm just reading body language, but it appears at times there seems to be going through the motions, and I don't know if that's a conditioning thing, a weight thing, or if that's just his overall calm, cool demeanor. So I'm not gonna, far be it for me to call someone overweight and out of shape, but there are signs.
At Andrew_Cherico, by the way, got a shout out. If you didn't know, in the last week, post game from Deion Sanders, who followed him back, and they DM one another now. So there's that.
There's a DM going. I didn't know there's a DM going on.
Yeah, there's DMs. There was a time, very fleeting, where I was the most famous person in Andrew's phone. But those days are long.
What are the DMs about? Fill me in. What are we talking about here?
That should be a segment on Up All Night, the occasional show you'll find on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel.
Do I have to tune into that? I have to watch that now too? Great.
Andrew asked, do you think this UCF offense is completely stagnant if RJ can't get going? He qualifies it with also, if yes, how screwed are we? They need to get out early. They've struggled now over multiple quarterbacks, multiple seasons in the red zone. And they need to, this is a Gator team that gives up a lot on the ground, but we heard that a week ago, right? The Colorado gave up running yards. So, but his question is the offense stagnant of RJ can't get going? Yeah.
It appeared so, right? Listen, we're gonna point to some of the passes, right? But a lot of that, that's a big chunk play to RJ that's gonna show some passing yards in that game. I think so. Yeah. I think if you can stack the box and force KJ to throw, yeah, you may have some success, but I think the averages would tell you he'll complete less than he will. What am I trying to say here? It's not going to be good. So let's just do that. I was going to do a George Bush thing there with if you fool me once, shame on you. If I can't fool it again, but
Andrew, the second question, another one like DJ Khaled, because I'm feeling feisty. says Cherico. If Ted Roof runs the
This
blitz
guy.
heavy defense, but we don't get to the quarterback, aren't we just taking people away from coverage for no reason?
Were people covering? That would be news. That would be yeah, I guess pick your poison, right? But the reality is we sent guys in this game. We sent Ethan Barr on blitzes. Malachi Lawrence was doing this weird thing that I don't understand. Maybe somebody smarter than me in football, where he was kind of hovering in the middle of the field and then looping around and rushing from a side. I think we tried to send guys, we tried to disguise things, and look how well that worked out. So I don't know what I mean, Coach Lounsbury said they worked on some things this week that are going to help get him to the quarterback. We just figured this out. Like, what are these things? What epiphany just hit us? So I'd love to see what that looks like.
Robert, 2 letters, 2 words. Is it time to make a change at quarterback? No.
Whew.
They're 3-1. No.
I probably agree with you, Trace, but here's the challenge: is I wonder what the ceiling of this offense could be, and I don't know enough about Ja'Carri Brown or Dylan Risk to know how they run the system. So that's the only thing that gives me pause. If I knew we had a guy like if this was JRP and Mikey, and you know how the other one plays on the bench, then that's a little easier to say that. I don't know. I feel like this offense is being held back by something. I'm not blaming it on KJ, but something hasn't really clicked to make this a wonderful offensive experience. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's quarterback. I just don't know what we have behind KJ to tell you that that's the switch we need to make.
Well, along these lines, at This Is Pega 5 Us, what would it take for Gus to replace KJ, or is it never happening this season? I mean, the bottom would have to just drop out, you know? I mean, it just would have to be on. I don't know. I don't see it.
I don't see it either. And to your point, unless the bottom really, really falls out, I don't see it.
At 3 nights, 7. When is the last time UCF developed a quarterback? It's starting to be a while ago, isn't it? Could you make the argument? Oh boy, here goes. JP or Jan. They developed John Rice Plumlee.
Is he supposed to pop out here? And there's
McKenzie, right? I mean, was there development of Mikey Keene?
I guess so your interpretation of the word development is different, right? Like, I don't know what you mean by development at this point. I would also so my answer is it's been a while, but I would also counter with in college football today, who is getting developed? What school do you go to that you're now getting developed as a quarterback? Everyone's jumping around so much. Who's the quarterback development school? Like,
can we count Thomas Castellanos, who we helped develop for Boston College?
I think that was in spite of that. I mean, who's the school that's developing quarterbacks right now? Like, Bo Nix was at Oregon for 2 years. Dylan's at Oregon. Like, where is that happening now? I can tell you, I don't think it's happening at UCF, but I don't know that it's happening a whole lot of places outside of that. Maybe Ohio State, but
second one from
transfer in. I don't know.
Second one from Robert. By the way, it's a 2-question maximum in this mailbag. They got people turning in 3 questions, auditioning for future shows on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Robert with a second question. I don't know what the third one was. I only included 2. One criticism of our staff is that they picked the best theoretical quarterback fit for Gus's preferred scheme over the best quarterback on the roster. Is this a valid criticism? Remember, unlike Coach Lounsbury, we don't see practice. We hear dribs and drabs from shareholders who see things. I don't know. It's an interesting topic, though. It's an interesting topic.
My hot take here is that Gus has been searching for the next Cam Newton for the last 10 years.
Didn't he get him now? Isn't that KJ?
Great question. It doesn't appear as though it's at that level, but Gus has been searching for that magic, just like I've been searching for my waistline 10 years ago. Gus is searching for a quarterback that's Cam Newton. I just don't know that that's ever coming back.
At Edward_AWRV, the season is young, but could it be argued that Gus's fastball has lost a little bit of speed each year? He argues 2021 was his best coaching job. He adjusted to Mikey's talents, and the team grinded out wins. 5 loss, 7 loss followed. Gus wrote a book. Come on. That's 2000 what? 3?
That's 2003. A lot of people.
I don't get to see all the comments here. I missed some of the comments.
They're super, super nice. They're having a really good time in the chat tonight.
Well, let's reevaluate that after the Gator game. I'd say that he's going to lose a little on the fastball.
I almost frame it
if they
this
don't
way.
win.
I don't know that. I mean, sure, Gus lost a lot off his fastball, but I also think that he never developed other pitches, right? So he doesn't have a curveball. He's not sporting a slider, and I think that's just as much of an indictment as anything. Is that there isn't a second or third pitch in his repertoire. If the fastball's off, then it's home run city.
At ZDADOUSH, Gus mentioned at the beginning of the year and last week that they've taken time to do some self-evaluation. With positive changes have we seen from that self-evaluation? I would love to trot that question out at the Monday presser, but I'm not sure how it would go over.
I think it's Z Dudash, by the way. I don't know why you got scared of saying that one.
Dadouche?
Dadouche?
I don't know. Some of these names that first, I don't know. I don't know. If you make a mistake here, you end up in the clip reel.
The only that's fair. The only self-evaluation I saw against Colorado is we didn't do as many jet sweep handoffs.
At L Bar 87, do we believe John Walker's really injured, or is this another Dylan Gabriel situation where he may be opting to leave at the end of the season? Well, he hasn't played in 4 games yet. You heard Nick say on the Gators that he's got a list of who's played in 4 games going into this game, going into the next game. And that is where we are, right? At the JC Morning, how bad will the impact of the loss, the Colorado loss, be on recruiting? Saw one decommit. I don't know if the decommit was necessary. I mean, we don't know that it was necessarily related to the Colorado loss. Does it matter? Does it matter if you have the right amount of money? I think it hurts. I'm not sure it hurts recruiting or the future transfer portal as much as it hurts the dollars from the fan base that they need to fund the player acquisition.
Yeah, I think I know I saw some people talking about this week on social media, and I think Gus has been great in the recruiting trail, right? But that hasn't really translated on field yet. It seems like a lot of those classes are not sticking around.
You got to play the guys.
Right, and that's the thing. So, yeah, you may not get the guys to stick, but the guys that are sticking, we're not necessarily seeing them as much on the field, and they're out of here before we get a chance to know them. So I think something's got to give there. I think you're more accurate in that what we don't need is billionaires fighting on Twitter, and that's our dollar pool right there. I think that's probably more of a challenge. I saw a bunch of people talking about how they're canceling their Kingdom memberships and blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah, I don't believe all that.
And that'll happen. But I think that's more to your point of the challenge here is the dollars.
Is Taylor Gehring a billionaire?
It's a great question.
Is that accurate information? That he's a billionaire?
I don't know. Anyone who's got more money than me is a billionaire typically.
He called out the other billionaire with saying his statement is aging like milk. So billionaire night on night crime online is funny. At Dangle UCF, who's redshirting? Hey, who's not? No, we only know officially now about Brian Threats and Xavier Townsend. We got some other names out there. I'll just tell you, as a principle of mine, I don't peddle in rumors and reckless speculation, so you're not going to see that from me. And Xavier confirmed it himself, and UCF hasn't released any statements on this. And follow whatever sources you want, but I don't do that, so I don't know the names that are confirmed beyond those. Andy, UCF XOS, I think he's fashioning himself as a future podcast host from some of the things he has said on social media this week. Why has the offense moved away from varying throw options, pre and post read RPOs? Adam, we should ask Coach Lounsbury.
That's a great question. That's a great question. Look, Andy knows more football than you and I do, so that's a
yes.
great question. I do think it, again, interestingly enough, I do think I felt like there's been a bit of a limitation in the offense this year. And again, I don't know what the reason for that is, if that's Gus trying to be different, or if that's, to your point earlier, we don't have the personnel. But I do think that some of the staples from Gus, I feel like we're not seeing as much. And there's got to be a underlying reason why that is.
At Last Floridian 89, who has been the most overrated transfer so far this season? KJ Jefferson. For me.
Yikes. Hot take.
Well, have you been impressed? I mean,
he's been serviceable.
That's the new standard.
Like serviceable.
What was last year's slogan? The standard is the standard.
Standard is the standard. Yeah. No, we don't have starters. We have standards. That was 2 years ago. We don't have starters. We have standards.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of KJ in the chat. A lot of KJ in the chat. So you may be onto something.
At 8433 ANY, why were there no second half adjustments? Well, we heard from Coach Malzahn that there were. Not Coach Malzahn, from Coach Lounsbury.
We heard it from him too. But yeah, I mean, Allegedly there were, right? Again, I'm not smart enough to know what they were, and clearly they didn't work. So maybe the question is, why didn't the second half adjustments work? Maybe that's a better question to ask, but don't know.
At J1 David 2Ds _ is it really the quarterback and decision making? If we're able to have quick scores and amass more yards, Baylor had 7 to 8 sacks, UCF not so many.
It's a great question. Again, it's a shock because I think all of us who were doing the preseason podcast, I think we've all been on some other shows and other parts of the country, and they say, "What's the strength of this UCF defense?" And I think we've all been like, "This D line, man,
D line,
D line's going to kill it this year." And so it's
we don't know nothing.
No, we know jack squat. It's a head scratcher. Why the D line hasn't necessarily been able to get more pressure with the front four. It's a head scratcher. I wish I had the answer to that. I don't know if Baylor did something schematically. Are they running twists, stunts? I don't know, but it's definitely a head scratcher.
At UCF fan 642, last two opponents pass heavy dominant. Why are our corners playing 10 plus yards off the line and not bumping them on the snap to disrupt timing and routes? What could be the reasons? And didn't we recruit 4-star DBs?
Well, poor Antoine Jackson. That's a tough one. That's a great question. I wish we had more time with Coach Lounsbury to figure that out. I mean, I assume there's something that tells them maybe they know the ball's coming out quickly, so they want them to be able to keep the guy in front of them, make tackles. I don't, or maybe they don't trust who they have there. I mean, I think the other thing that drives me nuts is we don't turn our head around sometimes. Balls are in the air. I think it's pretty easy to see that. You see a guy's hands move or something. You see the sort of the head move on a opposing receiver, and we never turn our head around. That also gives me the vibes.
Maybe a topic for Around the Kingdom. When are you what you are versus you're getting better every week? I mean, at a certain point, you are what you are, right? This, if we don't see improvements this week, maybe this is what they are. At the Dr. Drew, Ted Roof is not Ted Ceiling. You replace your roof every number of years. You keep your ceiling. Agree or agree. Follow for more wisdom. I don't know. I just liked it. I don't know what it entirely means, but I liked it. At FLA Box Breakers, when do we start hiring coaches and not friends? Can't we just be friends? Can't we just hug it out? Florida Box Breakers.
It's a great question. I don't know what we're asking here. Devin's asking balls in the air and you see guys. Yeah, like so if receivers going, the ball's coming to the receiver, right? You can start to see them get in position to potentially make a catch, right? Our DBs seem to continue to stare at the receiver versus seeing the signal that somebody maybe the ball's in the air and turning around. That's maybe I'm not articulating that well enough, Devin. That's what I'm referring to.
At Night Reaper, Mac McWilliams says no in-game adjustments were made on defense. Should this be enough to fire the DC and hire a more aggressive DC? You can't fire Ted Roof 4 games in. He's going to leave at 8 anyway.
Yeah, I think the flip of this is like, yeah, we didn't make any adjustments, but we just told them, to keep on the game plan. Like, again, it's I don't know. I like Mac McWilliams. I'm not quite sure if he meant to say what he meant to say, but the problem is
may not have.
Well, the problem, though, is Trace, is even if he says that he doesn't mean it, you connect the dots to the evidence you saw on the field, and it's not hard to put those two things together. I think that's the challenge, is you can easily take that statement and connect the dots to what happened on field and go, oh, okay, well, that makes some sense.
There it is, at Golden Knight _2. Been waiting. Always good with a question. Is it finally time to have the conversation to move on from Gus, Addison Williams, Ted Roof after this season? More embarrassing losses than signature wins. Picked the wrong quarterback 3 straight seasons. I'm not sure they picked the wrong quarterback coming out of camp. Maybe you could argue in the portal. Terrible skills, time management, bad defensive coaching hires. Yeah, made changes, right, with Darren Hinshaw and Addison Williams to, Tim Harris and Ted Roof. I mean, Gus is calling the plays. I don't think so, but you never know. If you have a new athletic director, anything is possible. Night Reaper with another. If you had to pick UCF's next head coach, who would it be and why? Oh, my.
It depends on who's available at that moment in time. I mean,
you want an up-and-coming coach? You want a
what I'd actually
Kinney type?
You know what I'd actually do, Trace? I think we hire a defensive-minded coach and let that person hire an offensive coordinator that can put together a good offense. I think we've gone with a lot of offensive coaches lately. Let's get back. Maybe get a defensive coach in there and let him hire an OC that can come in and run a good offense.
At UC Freak _ some of these screen names, I just love them. When does Terry's seat get hot? Some rumors out there that Mr. Mahajer is being considered for some open positions across the country at athletic director. I remember something Lee Corso said one time, that a coach is on the hot seat when donors bail, when the money dries up, and when fans start to tune out, stop going to games. And I imagine, that's the same case for the athletic director. I mean, they got big construction projects on hand, and no, I don't think so. I don't see any hot seat there, unless the billionaires who are battling on social media decide to pull the plug on their donations.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I would think that, he's not just judged on how the football program does, but the health of the overall, university buildings are being built. Revenue is getting there, right? So I think that's probably a big part of his role as well. So I don't see him leaving unless it's of his own accord.
Lonely B UCF, bigger Hall of Fame snub, Pete Rose or Alex Haynes? This is in your wheelhouse. Alex Haynes.
Alex Haynes is the correct answer, Mario. Everybody knows about people. Like, everybody gets it. Like, Alex Haynes is criminally underrated and has the statistics to back that up, and he should be in the Hall of Fame.
There you go. It didn't take much to get you
You're
going
welcome.
on that one.
You're
And
welcome.
UCF Knights win. Is Adam's Accusations the best segment on any football podcast in America?
That's you're too kind. But yes.
What is that just a different name for of a game previously played on the podcast?
That's more like reckless speculation, I think, which we've done before. Yeah, I like the alliteration if you haven't noticed. So yeah, that's just reckless speculation, just repurposed with my name.
At NightFan94, my online nemesis, should UCF restore the Frisbee golf course at the front of campus? Yes. I think I
agree.
read in a subsequent thing that it was moved. Is there a more nondescript entrance to a college campus than UCF's coming off University there at Alafaya? It's just, they need something, don't they?
I agree. Yeah, we need some sort of pomp and circumstance. But I've often said I want to start to take up Frisbee golf. I feel like it'd be a really interesting activity exercise.
It's fun.
I've played a couple of times, but not at any level. But let's, if they do it, I'm in. Let's go. We'll get a Sons of UCF team. Can we have a team? I don't even know.
Last time I played, I went out with 4 discs. I came back with 3. One, I don't know where that went. Out in the woods.
Yeah, it happens.
All right. I got to be very reserved during this segment. I make too many mistakes. I put my guard down here at the end. But Adam, what is in the box?
Oh boy, Trace, I couldn't even. I mean, I can tell you what's in the box, and that's the questions that come courtesy of Charlie Hustle. Promo code TEN1215 if you want 15% off any non-sale item. Trace, here we go. It's in the box this week.
I always look to your face when you go, oh boy.
All right. If you
face.
had to invest a sum of your own money in one of these two things, which would you pick? Butterscotch candy or paper maps?
Butterscotch candy or paper. What? Oh my, I don't know. These do not seem like I think there's a market for the butterscotch candies. I think where I'm located is about an hour away from the villages, and I imagine per capita they may be selling a little bit more of the butterscotch candies.
Yeah, but how do you get repeat business there? I think that's the challenge, right? At some point, how do you get repeat business? The business.
But what would bring back paper maps?
Nothing. I think, right? Like.
I mean, interestingly enough, where all these areas decimated by storms without internet towers.
I think Mike was not trying to be funny here when he says this. Yeah.
No,
I can never tell if Mike's being serious or not, but that's a good point. Do you even own a paper map? When's the last time? I don't even know how I work one of those things.
I maybe in the glove compartment. I don't know.
Yeah. But I feel like butterscotch, though, there's not a lot of repeat business.
But the people who like the butterscotch, is that candy? What is that? Werther's? Is that a butterscotch, or is that a completely different thing? They do commercials too, right?
Okay,
and
but what's
they sell around the holiday season?
What's the median age of a butterscotch lover?
Higher than the median age watching this right now.
Okay, and I think that's my challenge: is where am I getting new business from? I need to attract a younger audience, then, if I want to make butterscotch a thing. I think maps could be used as adornments in a living room or something, right? You get the map. This is where we live. Like maybe there's a retro phase with maps.
I trust your kids to sell butterscotch to a new generation using social media, TikTok.
I wouldn't do that. I mean, but these kids are into newfangled candies. Mr. Beast has a chocolate bar that just says Mr. Beast on it. Everyone goes, crazy over it.
But if you had interesting packaging, a celebrity endorser, DJ Khaled, or the like, maybe you take butterscotch to another level.
What's the packaging that would make you go, wow, butterscotch seems appealing all of a sudden? What are they doing?
I don't know, something, whatever they got Mountain Dew, bright colors and all that. Remember that Seinfeld bit? He goes, I'm drinking the same soda that they're advertising on TV. They're flying through the air. I'm just sitting on my couch. So maybe it's the packaging. Maybe,
That's fair. Were you also shocked?
Probably a word in this segment I should avoid because that's the kind of thing that gets me in trouble.
I think you're fine. Were you shocked to learn this week on Around the Kingdom that Rick Ross and DJ Khaled are both younger than Terrell Owens?
Yes. I think it was interesting that DJ Khaled just sang the same songs over and over again.
He wanted us to put our hands up an awful lot. That's why my hands weren't going up anymore. My hands were down.
What is the reference that Dolly has here? A thick Mrs. Butterworth. What is this? Is this the advertising for butterscotch? What is going
Brian Peterson may actually be your target audience here. Butterscotch adjacent to gold, no?
It's better than the gold you're wearing.
This is more like a yellow. I don't even really.
Is this a shirt you purchased at recently?
It is. Yes, it is. Yeah, no, this is a real deal. This is an Alumni Hall special right here. They're proud sponsors of the Sons of UCF. Go check them out. They were nice enough to give us a gift card that Mr. Matt Dolan won because he had a car shade that originated, I think, in the mid 90s. He needed some new gear, so luckily Alumni Hall had him covered there. And we have something else coming up with Alumni Hall. We're going to announce probably in about a week. Another giveaway that they've been kind enough to let us do as well. So give Alumni Hall your patronage. I'm sure a lot of us have donated a lot of our paychecks to them already.
So you're going to the game. Mike's got a whole plan, right, in place.
This is Mike's Super Bowl right here. This is Mike's Super Bowl right here. This is it. And Mike is.
If UCF loses, who's doing the pod with you on Monday? Because Mike can be checked out.
Well, maybe I'll call one of the guys from Up All Night because, gosh darn it, I'm sure they're available. No, this is Mike's Super Bowl. This is big for Mike. If you see Mike there too, by the way, he is very much looking to meet people because his daughters like to believe he's famous. So if you see Mike there, feel free to razz him. And for a fun fact of all who are there, I will announce this to everybody. Saturday is also Mike's birthday. So while you're there, wish him a happy birthday as well.
Happy birthday, Mike. Yeah, happy birthday. All right. Final prediction now for this.
Hold on, no pod on Monday apparently. So we're
we're having a production meeting here at the end of the show.
I learned this as you just did that no pod on Monday. So stay tuned.
The next message pod will probably have to be on Tuesday. That's the next message in the queue.
So can we work on Around the Kingdom this week, Trace? We may need to make some schedule changes.
What time do you record typically? Is that like a 7? We can go later on Around the Kingdom.
All right,
that's
figure it out.
So what? We got no idea, right? We've proven we don't know anything. We know what we've seen, and we know what we've heard, and they are capable of winning. This is not a great Gator team. Maybe UCF rises to the occasion. I think one of the things we said about Gus Malzahn is he loses you a game you should win, and wins you a game that maybe is a loss. I don't know if the Florida game counts as that, but I think the spirits are a little down amongst Night Nation and could be redeemed. I mean, I think they know what's at stake. How do they perform, right?
Here's what I can tell you, Trace.
As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
That, my friend,
the late Donald Rumsfeld
was not about UCF, but fits perfectly in where we are right now.
So your prediction?
I don't know, man. I mean, I might as well be super. I mean, Coach Lounsbury, God love him, like positive guy. A very give me 34-30 UCF.
So you expect high scoring rather than both teams being able to run the ball and chew up the clock and.
Yeah, because I mean, look, UCF was in position to score a few other times on Saturday. We just absolutely shot ourselves in the foot there. Good. We're producing on the fly. ELO available on Monday, Trace. If you want to do a Monday show, we're ready. We're produced. We'll just do it right now. ELO, hop in. We'll do Around the Kingdom. Right
just so you know,
JP
for further
Gilbert's
planning,
ready.
I have a meeting at 7:00 on Monday, so I'm not available until late Monday. I could do Monday, but if you'll let me know for sure, so that because I usually don't start working on the rundown.
DJ Khaled as tall as Britt. I did not have that. He did look like a He wasn't the. I don't want to insult anybody. I'm gonna stop.
Svelte,
Yes.
not the most svelte.
That's
We have gone way over than we normally do. I thank you all. 40 plus questions in the mailbag. Y'all were fired up about a lot of things, but UCF gave you a lot of things to be fired up about. I want to appreciate our friends previewing the Gators and Coach Lounsbury as well, and all of you for watching. Be safe in your travels to Gainesville. If you're going up early or if you're going up Saturday, it's a tough place to get in and out of with so many people traveling. Don't know if I'll end up seeing you, Adam, or Mike. Mike, happy birthday. And thank you all for being with us on this week's Sons of UCF Live. For Adam, I'm Trace. Go Knights.
Charge on. And there's only one person we can use this week, Trace.
This is Trent Whittemore. Thanks for watching Sons of UCF.
Trent Whittemore.
I'm sorry, what?
Let's have a big game.
I'm sorry, what? I know